how can you stay competitive in today's environment
Yeah.
with others having so many, let's say, offers? How can you stand out to make sure that your offer at least is being one of the top ones?
Relationships with realtors and sellers. I mean, it's funny because there's a lot of real estate that is cyclical. There's a lot of part of this that comes and goes in different market cycles, but there's actually a lot of it that is pretty standard throughout our career, and it's like, how do we get deals? How do we stay competitive? How do we find deals in any market, up, down, or whatever? Relationships. It's always that answer, right? And so I kind of tell everybody that, my students, and I know I've mentioned this to you as well, but it's like, if you're trying to go below 50 units, you're probably better off trying to go directly to an owner. The realtors work some, you can get with some single family type realtors, have them set you up maybe in the MLS. Hey, if anything hits the MLS that fits this description, send me an email, fine. But once you really kind of start going 20, 30, 50 units and up, you really get into the realtor world there. And that's my answer is relationships, because good deals can be actually very political. They're a lot of times traded behind closed doors. For example, I've sold 3 properties, literally closed one at 4:58 yesterday afternoon. So sold 3 in the last 12 months, and only one was actually listed to the public. So 2 out of 3, when my partners and I got ready to sell, I picked up the phone and I called some of my close realtors and I said, okay, we're interested in selling, but we're not going to give you a full listing, and we're not going to, give you any kind of exclusivity. I'll give you the financials and all that. If you have some buyers, bring us some offers. And I called 4 realtors, and those 4 realtors called, 3 or 4 people each, and we were under contract twice like that. So my point in this is, to see those deals, which were obviously good deals to someone because they bought them, you would have had to have had the relationship with that realtor, because it was a secret deal, it was off market, right? And so that's the key. It's like really getting to be established in your market, showing up in your market, touring properties with those realtors on a regular basis, and meeting owners on a regular basis. It's grunt work. It just is. There's no magic answer, no magic bullet that's like, oh, go here and download this and there's all the deals. It's not like that, and if these realtors come across a really good deal, I'll give you 2 points from the way they think. Number one, they're going to want to try and put that deal to a closer, someone they feel that can close the deal. Number two, and here's something a lot of people don't realize about commercial realtors, they want you to relist that deal with them when you go to sell it. And if they don't trust that you're someone that may give them back that listing, they're not as likely to give you the deal in the first place. I'm not saying they never will, but I'm just saying, believe me, that is a big thought process in their mind. Am I taking this deal and sending it outside of my network by giving it to Vlad? Or is Bill, who I've already done 2 or 3 deals with, going to relist with me? That has a lot to do with it. So that's why I'm kind of saying early on, when you're meeting realtors and things like that, remember the relisting aspect is very important to them. And it's just something that you want to kind of bring up in conversation, because they're not likely to bring that up. And you can kind of just say, hey, well, listen, we always like to relist with the people that sold it to us. Just drop that little sentence every now and then in conversation with the realtor, and it'll turn their little light on. So those are just some tips. It's time and market, it's showing up, it's meeting realtors. That's how you are going to be the most competitive. Now, to answer your question a little more specifically, terms, that's always the answer. If you are trying to make an offer, an LOI, something like that, more attractive without just blowing the price up. I mean, obviously the highest price typically, well, no, I take that back. Actually, that's not a true statement. You would think that the highest price always attracts the sale, and that's actually not true. I myself have accepted offers that were not the highest price, and I've seen a lot of sellers accept offers that were not the highest price because they didn't trust who the highest price came from. They didn't think that was a real offer. So I was going to say, price always gets it, but that's actually, as I'm saying that out loud, not true. It falls back to that relationship thing. I would rather have a secure, lesser offer that I know will close than a giant offer that's unlikely to close. So, it's terms and it's confidence. But again, besides dropping the price, due diligence window, you can shorten your due diligence window. You could go with earnest money. non-refundable at a sooner point in time. You could not have contingencies, things like that. But I'll go ahead and warn you, I don't recommend any of the things that I just said. As a matter of fact, I recommend at the moment completely the opposite, that you all start getting aggressive with your offers and shift the market. It is shifting, but lead it, shift it. Sellers have mortgages, buyers don't, right? Be patient. Their loan's going to come due. And when it does, there'll be a reckoning. So don't be too aggressive at the moment. Be patient and get aggressive with your offers. It's our turn. Take these deals back from these sellers. Don't let them, make those offers or prices. In my opinion.
Thank you. That's awesome. But would you still recommend going the creative way?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So let's start there. When do we go creative? All right. So first off, what I recommend is that you don't go out and try and find creative deals. First mistake people make when thinking about creative financing is they think, all right, I'm going to go out and find deals that I can do a lease option or seller financing or something like this. And that's a mistake. You don't want to do that. You want to go out and just analyze deals the way you always analyze deals, just generally underwriting. If you come across a deal that will not work with a traditional loan, you've done the math and you've put in the income and the expenses and the mortgage, and you look down and the debt service coverage ratio is very low. And I can explain that if anybody needs to know what debt ratio is, but basically that's, how you're going to get a loan. And if you realize that the lender is not likely to give you a good loan, that's when you then come back to the seller and say, listen, I talked to the bank and they're not real aggressive on this deal. They're asking me to put down 40, 50% down payment. And that really just doesn't work, so I have a suggestion. That's when you come in with that creative offer. So don't just go around hunting creative offers, because that can actually make you look like you're not a closer and that you don't have money, and that the only way you can get into business is if somebody gives it to you, and you don't want that perception in the market. So again, just analyze deals, and when they don't work with traditional financing, that's when you break out the creativity instead of just throwing it in the trash. And remember, creative financing is only meant to increase probability of close. It's not taking things from 0 to 100. It's like if you're finding 10% of all the deals you look at to be something interesting, creative financing will turn that number to 20%. That's it. That's all it's for. Some deals are bad deals, right? Creative financing doesn't make a bad deal a good deal. It makes, an okay deal a better deal.
Thank you. One thing, let's just say that your offer is more than 20% below what they're asking. Would you still go back and say, hey, listen, at this number, I know I'm super low. What would you do here?
Yes. So if you're working directly with the seller, just go ahead and submit the offer. First comment. Second comment, LOI, letter of intent. You really need to be using the letter of intent. If you guys aren't familiar, the letter of intent is kind of just a back of the napkin, non-binding offer that spells out the basics of the deal, the price, the general terms, some of this kind of stuff. The reason that I say this is very important, even whether you're working with a realtor or directly to a seller, that you want to use this LOI is because the majority of the time sellers are not going to accept your offer the first time around. And this LOI is something they can put in the file cabinet and have a way to come back to you in the future, because they're likely to say, oh, no, there's no way I'd sell at that price. Well, motivation changes over time, especially when people's mortgages start coming due. And that's where they may say no to you up front, but then, a few months later, you might get that phone call. But if you don't submit the LOI, the likelihood that you're going to get that phone call drops significantly. So it's all about, placing those offers within a way that they can get back to you. Now that's working directly with the seller. Same comment basically with a realtor, except we're going to add one step in here. Right before you submit the LOI, you want to phone the realtor up and have a conversation with them and say, listen, I understand that you wanted your seller wants $2 million for the property. My underwriting puts me at $1.4 million. And I understand that's a pretty big discount from the asking price. What do you want me to do? That's the point right there. You're going to get permission to make a low offer. Once you submit the LOI to a realtor, they have a fiduciary responsibility to turn that offer in. They have no responsibility to recommend the offer. And in a lot of cases, they'll do quite the opposite. They'll say, hey, listen, this Vlad and Bill here submitted this offer, and I don't know these guys, but here you go. I don't know. You don't need that. You need that realtor going in there going, listen, I understand this isn't exactly what you wanted, but Vlad and Bill here, they're serious buyers. This is a serious offer. You should take this offer seriously. That's what you need that realtor doing. So don't get the messenger killed is my ultimate point. If that realtor has to go turn in some kind of lowball offer that you just shot out there, it may damage the relationship between the realtor and seller, and they'll remember that you're the one that did that. So lots of offers. Today is the time for offers. A year ago, I would have not told you this. I said, you're wasting your time making low offers. Now I'm telling you, offer low, offer often. Just do it with permission so you don't damage realtor relationships. You're going to start seeing a lot of motivation shift in the market soon, and you're going to want to be at the head of that wave when it happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was my question, because I was like, do I go and submit all the time, or what's the situation? And what type of properties would you recommend buying now? I know you into market cycles.
Yeah,
and teach that all the time. So
newer is always going to be my answer in that question. Just what I'm saying right now is we need to be careful with older buildings, older commercial buildings. And I'm saying older being stuff built older than probably 1980. If it's older than 1980, I'm not saying you need to run away. I'm just saying you need to be very careful, because there's a lot of infrastructure in these old buildings that has never in American history been a problem before, but it is now. And it's the plumbing and the electrical and a lot of that stuff. And so many people have kind of ignored that, turned a blind eye to that. The plumbing and the subflooring and all that has sat there quietly rotting away over the decades. And now, you pop the hood on this property and really look under there and realize there's a lot of infrastructure problems. Well, that's a cost basis issue. Purchase price plus all the money you're going to have to put into this building will exceed the value. And that's not good. So, that's what I'm just saying. Watch these older buildings right now. I would say probably you want to be in the 1985 assets or newer if you can help it. If it's an older building, that's where you want to use the creative financing. I would be careful about going and getting a mortgage, a credit damaging mortgage that could go into foreclosure on an old building in this market cycle with the economy being a little wonky. That's what creative financing is for. It's a way to hedge some of that risk, share some of that risk with the seller, sort of a partnership with your seller. So if you're getting a mortgage and you're paying cash, things like that, you're syndicating, you're raising money, I would go with quality of asset, newer than 85. Creative financing, do whatever you can get. Older buildings are fine for that, but just know that we've got a big infrastructure sort of problem in America, especially in a lot of our older apartment complexes.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody, I don't want to ask all the questions. If you have anything, please chime in or put them in the chat box. And because you want to ask, please ask questions. That's what we're here for. Because I don't want to ask everything. So yeah.
Yeah. Anybody got anything they want to talk about? Or if anyone, has any kind of problem they're working on right now, if anybody has an issue or a case study with a deal, those are always good things to kind of bring out. Maybe we could all kind of circle the wagons and take a look at. But yeah, we gotta watch the market, and I'll just kind of continue on. Again, believe anybody has any comments or questions, jump in. But yeah, you've kind of mentioned market cycles, and that is something that I teach a lot, and that we certainly need to be cognizant of. And the markets cycle based on the availability of money in the world. It's really quite basic. If everybody has money, then they're comfortable and they spend money. And if everybody spends money, then prices go up. And if people don't have money, they get conservative, and then they stop spending money, and then prices and values tend to fall. Very simple. Okay, so what we need to watch is the availability and the supply. More technically, M1, you've got to look at the amount of money that is in the American system and in the global system, which we call inflation, right? So as you're seeing inflation rise for a while, that's a good thing. And you will see your properties values inflate, rent inflate, and everything goes up, and that's great. Yeah, but what goes up comes down. And so you have to watch. The feds won't allow that to go too far. And that's when they say, as they have now, hey, that's too much money in the world. You all are spending too much and you're agreeing with each other too much. We need you to disagree with each other a little more, in layman's terms. And so now that's why they're raising the rates. It's a way, in short, what they're doing is they're competing with banks. if you're not familiar with the economic policy here, what the feds do is they raise the rates that they pay out on bonds and things of that nature. And so the average dollar says, well, do I put my dollar in a checking account or, Bank of America, or do I put it with US government? The US government's paying good rates. Well, that's kind of what they do with raising the rates. That's how, by the way, when the feds raise their core rate, it translates down to rate raises in the general mortgage industry. It is not a one-to-one. So just because the feds raise rates does not mean your mortgage is going up. It usually does, but it's not in lockstep, right? So that's what it is. It's a competitive thing. The government's just trying to be competitive. Well, once you give the money to the government, they literally delete it. They literally take the zeros off the ledger. I'm not making that up. So the government right now is deleting money. Money is very rarely in actual physical coin or paper currency. It's all, ledgers. And so the US government is deleting money at the moment to hopefully bring inflation back under control. But that's going to make some uncomfortableness for a little while. It's going to be a little uneasy. You got to get poor in order to decline inflation. Yeah, well, it's that whole get poor part that people not gonna care for that, And so it's like I see a lot of these protests and things where they're saying, hey, our wages are not keeping up with inflation. Yeah, duh. That's the point. That's exactly the Fed's point, And so then people get upset because they want wage growth. But wage growth is inflation. So you want wage growth, so the feds will raise the rates some more so that we just keep the cycle going. Well, somebody's got to bite the bullet and get a little more impoverished for inflation to get under control. Macroeconomics, those are your renters. Be careful. Those are the first people to get hit first. Those are going to be your renters. Those are going to be the wage earners. Those are going to be your average working class, their credit card payments going up, fuel, gas prices, all that stuff's going up. So we kind of have to watch the economy. That's the feds pulling money out of the world, plus the things getting a little more expensive. Rent growth. Watch out for rent growth. That's where I would say going forward, be cautious about underwriting for the amount of rent growth that you've seen over the last year or two. Yes, we've seen 20% rent growth. It's gone crazy. That's only because there's been so much money in the world post, COVID and them, the stimulus and all that kind of stuff. Well, now the feds are trying to pull all that money back out of the world that they pumped into the market. And that's where I would say be a little cautious about overly underwriting for rent growth, that can get you in trouble. So that's kind of like the market where we're at. I think what's going on. And, things you just kind of want to watch out going forward. Adriana asked, why would you decide to sell given Jake and Gino's buy and hold strategy? Oh, that's easy. There are three reasons that you sell real estate: profit, condition, management. Those are usually your three answers. Why and when would you sell an asset? When it gets so old that it is more profitable to sell and realize your capital gains than to reinvest those dollars into the building. I was faced with this about a year and a half ago, where my partner and I had a building that we owned for better than a decade. We owned it. It's like 152 units we owned for almost 11 years. And the building needed about 400 grand worth of work, just walking around repair and maintenance, not repairs and maintenance that were going to really make that property more valuable, nor cash flow anymore, just 400 grand worth of deferred maintenance, And we stopped and looked at that and said, okay, if we spend the 400 grand, that's fine, but we have to do one of two things to come up with the 400 grand to begin with, right? We either have to, one of three things. We have to call our investors up and say, give us money. We weren't going to do that. Didn't need to. Refinance the property. Okay, we could do that and pull our equity out, use that money to put back into the building. Yeah, but now we got to go lock down another 5 or 7 year loan. And we're in this building for another 5 or 7 years. Or third option, hey, we could just sell at a really good price, collect a bunch of profit, make it somebody else's issue and be done with it. So condition is one of the main reasons that you'll wind up selling a property. Profit is another one. Yes, buy, hold, cash flow is great. But if somebody shows up and offers you 3, 4, 5 years worth of cash flow this afternoon, that's motivating. I mean, it is, right? You're going to sit here and just collect little checks for months and months and months and months, or one big one right now, That's motivating. And then third would be your management sucks, and there's nothing you can do about it because you bought some junky property in a junky neighborhood in some small town, and there's nothing bunch of abilities to go out there and manage your property, and you're hating life and you want to get out of it. How do I know? That would be your third option. So it's management, condition, profit are my general answers to why would someone sell a profit. I guess actually I can throw a fourth one in there. Mortgage, your loan comes due. That would be another one that would force you to exit. People kind of have this idea of like, oh, I'm just going to buy real estate and hold on to it and give it to the grandkids. That's a relatively silly concept. You really kind of unpack that. I mean, number one, nobody's going to give you a 100-year mortgage. Right. So you're going to have to exit about every 3 to 5 years in a refinance and refi. And that's fine. But those are all exits all along the way. So don't think you're just going to buy real estate. It's like some rotisserie chicken. You're just going to set on the shelf and forget about it. That's not how this works. Second comment, if you bought a property today and gave it to your grandkids, you're going to turn your grandkids into slumlords. That property is going to be ancient by the time you give it to them. It's going to be garbage. It's going to be rotten. The neighborhood is going to be. Do you know how much real estate I've bought from heirs? They said, yeah, dad, granddad left me this. Man, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't know what the heck this thing is. I just give me a check. Matter of fact, you can just give me half the money. I'm out of here. I have bought a lot of legacy wealth at legacy discounts. Let me go ahead and tell you, your agenda for your future may not be their agenda, and so Valerie, that's why I love to see you've brought your son here. The legacy is in education. The legacy is in showing them a way to live and the things that we do, not in spoiling them with assets. That's not a great idea, and I see that a lot. People just want to hand everybody a portfolio. Oh, you're set for life. You never have to worry. Well, has anybody ever looked up the stats on wealth loss over generation? Anybody here have anybody, and I'll tell you if you haven't, has anybody ever looked up the decline in wealth over a third generation? Anybody have any clue? Raise your hand if you know what it is. Going once, going twice, about 70% lost on the second generation, 90% to the third. You will be sleeves to sleeves in 3 generations. Huge decline in legacy wealth over 2 generations, 90% by the grandkids. So your child's going to lose about 70% of it, and their kids are going to make sure all the rest of it's gone. So this whole concept of legacy wealth, I think, is a misunderstood point. Your legacy needs to be in education, same as Alex. I know you have your daughter here, and people, this is great. I love to see the youth being involved in this, but at the same time, my father was a physician. He wanted me to be a physician. Oops. So, you can't make the kids all want to be in real estate. You can introduce them to it. This is excellent, but you also have to give them the freedom to sort of choose their own path at some point in time, and don't force them into being landlords if they don't want to be. They will liquidate, and I will buy it at a discount. Trust me. So leave a business, leave education, leave things like that to your children, not assets. Anyway, thanks for letting me share. That's my soapbox on legacy wealth, but I think that's just something we got to kind of watch out for.
Emma, you have a question? No? She raised her hand.
Oh, yeah. Emma, you have a question? Yeah, you're at the front of the line there. Maybe she walked off. She'll come back. But
I think Jacob had a question.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay. Anybody else have a question? Unmute yourself and ask.
I have a question. First of all, fantastic information. Thank you so much for everything you've provided so far. Incredible stuff. Earlier, you were talking about macroeconomics, and you were talking about value of money and rent raises and all of that. I was looking at some kind of stat that was talking about how in the 08, 9, 10 decline in value, and basically the Great Recession, a lot of values went down on the coasts, and however, rents never went down. So I know that no one has a crystal ball, but what's your perspective on actual rents this time around? Do you think that rents might stay even and eventually go back up?
We did see a little rent decline in some cities. There was some rent decline in some cities.
And I know it's market specific, by the way, so I understand that.
Also a fly in the ointment, if you want, there. You've got to be a little careful. So there is physical vacancy and economic vacancy or occupancy, right? And so if I rent out the unit for $1,000, then I am claiming that rent is $1,000. Yeah, but what if I had to give away 2 months to get you in there? Did I lower the rent? Not technically. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
that makes sense.
But for the stats, did I? No. See, now the books and the stats say, no, Bill's collecting $1,000 in rent. did he not? I don't know. So what we saw and what I think we are going to see again is not an immediate decline in rent, but yes, a heavy leveling off of the rent. And I think that you might start to see vacancy creeping up. And usually the first counteraction to vacancy is concessions.
I was going to say concessions, a lot of concessions being given out. Okay. Gotcha.
Watch your concession market. That's what I'm really getting to, is don't watch the top level of rent. Watch that concession market. And when you start seeing, you're riding down the road and you're seeing now leasing, 1 month free rent.
1 month free. Yeah.
Ding, 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 watch that. It's the same thing when you see We Buy Houses pop up by the stop sign at the road. That is an indication of the market cycle has swung up. I went through 08, and when I got into the business in 05, bandit signs and all that garbage were everywhere. And then I remember kind of coming out of 2012, 13, 16, 17, you didn't even see any of the We Buy Houses. And all of a sudden, about 18, 19, here they go. Here come the signs again. It's just an indication of market cycle. They're little things that we can watch in our world. And when you start seeing advertisement for apartments, that'll be the indication of concessions, and concessions are an indication of softening market demand. And what I think, kind of just going a little further with this, is that we are living in America under a little bit of a macroeconomic illusion that we sort of have this housing crisis or a housing shortage. I would take a very hard right comment to that and say it's not true. I almost find that kind of an offensive comment. You want to know what a housing crisis looks like? Go overseas. Go to South America. That's a housing crisis. Look around. This is not a housing crisis. We don't have people living in favelas stacked on top of each other on shanty hills. That's a housing crisis. This is a comfortability crisis. Major difference, Can we all go get roommates? Yeah. Can the 18-year-old live at home a little bit longer instead of getting her own apartment as soon as he moves out? Yeah. Will you see the kids moving in and getting roommates? Yeah. And that creeps in with vacancy, and that's where you'll start to see the concessions. And so this whole we have a housing crisis thing, I'd caution everybody against that. It's a little bit arrogant, and it's a little first world for us to have that opinion compared to the rest of the world. And that's why I just think, yes, now, do we have a lack of good, clean, affordable housing? Yes, I agree with that comment, but just lack of housing, watch yourself. That's getting a bit first world. And I think that is something that we are going to see kind of slide back the other direction, and we will see some vacancy, and then as I said, you'll see your concessions creeping in. So just watch your concession markets, like I do. Watch your T12s, by the way, when you all are out analyzing deals. And I know I've taught Vlad and Mina and Alex and all these people here, watch your trend over the T12. So like left to right, do you see vacancy rising? Do you see the concessions starting to go? Watch your T3 most specifically. You start to see that T3 J curving upwards in the vacancy or the concession category. That is a 4th of July red flags.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Stuff that keeps me up at night.
Hey, Bill, I have a question.
Yeah, good.
Hey, Bill, how are you? Thank you for doing this. Bill, so I have a question. 2 years ago, right? So I'm just setting up a scenario. An overly aggressive syndicator, right, takes a property up, takes a bridge loan, 2-year bridge loan, right? Now they never underwrote for the interest rate hikes as quickly as they happened, right? So now they're underwater. So now say they got a private capital loan. What is the process there, and how can we take advantage of it? Does the private lender then take it back and relist it at a loss, basically?
Yeah, there's a lot in there. Yeah, so the private lender could take possession of the asset. The private lender could hold on to it, operate it until a better day, and then liquidate at a higher price. We saw that in the 08 crisis, where I remember going back through that thinking that property went into foreclosure, and that apartment went into foreclosure, and that apartment went into foreclosure. And I'm going to sit right here because, man, they're going to hit the market. They're going to be cheap, and we're going to buy a bunch of apartments. Never happened. The banks sat on the assets. They got into the asset management business. And so the banks actually just sat there, hired management companies, and let that market sit until the value came back up, and then they sold them. So I was expecting this big, avalanche of fire sale real estate, and it happened in the houses, but not in the multifamily. And so my point here is, yes, up to your point, a lender could just take possession of the asset, operate it, and sell it at a future point in time. A lender could work out the loan. You restructure the loan if you don't feel like taking possession of the asset. You can also sell the note as a non-performing note. The seller may just dump the asset. All of that, that's all well and good. There's another point here. Be careful what strangers you take your candy from. Be careful what lenders you go taking your money from. They are not all your friend. There are a lot of loan to own lenders out there. They are dying to give you a loan because they're going to cut you into bits the second you miss one little aspect of that loan. And yeah, they're there to take your property. They gave you the loan with full intention of foreclosing on you in the future and taking that property. And they're waiting for you to just screw up, be one day late on a payment. I know a few of them personally. And I'm warning you, they are out there. And so be careful where you get your money from. Don't think all lenders are the same and they're all, so I'm discussing private groups. We're not talking about, Wall Street or Bank of America. They're not up to that. But your hard money lenders, your private money lenders, kind of people like you're discussing, Sip. Yeah, watch some of those people. It's called loan to own. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that going forward, aggressive, predatory type lending. So just be careful.
Awesome. Thank you. And your perspective on the housing crisis was very interesting. Never heard it put that way. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which part?
The part about where you're like, we don't have a housing crisis. We have a comfortability crisis. That's a cool, cool way to look at it.
I mean, it is, and it's a comfort thing. And, and I like being comfortable. I'm sitting down here at the beach, but it doesn't mean that I think this is surviving. This is far from surviving, isn't it? I haven't been pushed to a survival point, and I think neither have the majority of people. I don't know. I'm just somewhere between cautious and paranoid, and I like to kind of live in that world. Just always look over your shoulder. Don't be negative. Be cautious.
Thank you.
Yeah, a little paranoia is healthy. Yeah, anybody got anything else? And Vlad, you keep an eye on the time. I don't know what's man, it's Saturday. I got all morning, but you guys let me know what you want to do as far as time is concerned. And I know you had some other agenda for the call.
Oh yeah, I lost track of time.
We're doing this 9:36. I'm like, I don't know what you want to do. Tell me.
Valerie, what are we doing? We doing breakouts, or should we do a couple of more questions?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has any other real pertinent questions, or we can do breakouts either way.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
I started reading an article yesterday, and I got to go back to it, but there was some acronym, and it was actually in a real estate trade magazine, and it was linking to a course that they were teaching on the future of multifamily and commercial real estate and what's happening with energy and how that's affecting properties. And there's some acronym they use like GER or GSR. It's like government or governance something and energy, or government governance, energy and something. Not familiar. In how, and now to be for a lot of these energy companies, like here where I am in Rhode Island, by 2035 or 2045, the electric company has to be off fossil fuels. Nothing. So there's a huge movement, and I'm just wondering, has any thought been given as to the future of multifamily in regards to, are they going to have to convert to solar? I know there's some of that happening now, which hasn't really been on my radar, but that could be a whole new level of CapEx. That
Great point. Great conversation. I don't know is the answer. Yeah, it's not something that has been in the forefront of conversation with multifamily operators that we all need to be converting to some other source of energy. No, the closest conversation we've had and the closest functional issue we've had to that was the EPA making us convert the coolant in our HVAC systems to the more upgraded R22, whatever it is now, right. So that's been a pain in the butt. And even then, everybody kind of rang the alarm bells going, oh my gosh, the EPA makes us all upgrade to this new chemical. That's just going to wipe out everybody's HVAC and everybody's going to have to replace all of it. It's going to be catastrophic. Didn't happen. Didn't go that way. The other products came out. There were some other things that were drop-in stuff you could kind of use. And it just really wasn't that catastrophic. And I'm not saying that we won't and don't need to move towards some other alternate fuel. I don't think it's going to be the landslide incident that people are concerned that it will be. I'll tell you, I think there are probably bigger elephants in the room than that one. You know, I think there are bigger things to be concerned about that we might not be discussing than that. You know, politics being one, landlord, you know, friendly, tenant friendly kind of conversation. I think there's going to be a lot more laws that come out in the direction of tenants, you know, things of that nature, aging asset, stuff like that. I think there's a lot of bigger things than besides, you know, renewable energies, but it is a topic and it is coming for sure. But yeah, I mean, you know, what are you going to, back to my original point about CapEx, what are you going to do with all these properties built in 1963? And you're you know, you're talking about putting solar panels on there. Hey, how about we just make sure the toilet flushes and doesn't, you know, blow out into the street when we do? That's a bigger issue, you know, very real issue. You know, let's just make sure that we're not poisoning all of our tenants with lead. You know, solar panels, no. Let's worry about poisonous water first. You know, they're just bigger elephants in the room than that one. And I'm not, you know, I'm not making light of that conversation. You're not going to get that far. You're going to have bigger issues before you get that far. I think, my opinion.
Good point.
Yeah, our inner city neighborhoods are in tough shape as far as infrastructure is concerned. You've seen this with Jackson, Mississippi and Flint, Michigan. Those are just, I think, some of the tip of the icebergs. I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that sort of infrastructure issue, especially around the plumbing going forward. You know, and side tip, hey, get into the plumbing business. You want to be in the forefront of making some money. Get out of real estate and get into plumbing. That's like I said, plumbing, electrical. That's really where you're going to want to be at over the next 10 years. I think, you know, if you want to open a side business, plumbing, electrical, yeah, those are going to be big ones. And then roofs probably third, you know, my opinion.
That's awesome.